Hey, Relevant Church, and thanks for tuning in tonight. We just wanted to take a little while and talk a little bit with you about what's happened in 2021 and what's coming in 2022. I'm here with Pastor Daniel, our student pastor. And if you're tuning in tonight or at some point in the future, there's just a lot of cool things that have happened. I hope you had a great holiday break, and I hope you're getting ready for what's happening in 2022. Tell me a little bit, Daniel, since we had Christmas services that you guys went to Wisconsin, and tell us a little bit about the weather up there compared to down here.
It's cold. It is cold. We hit negative 23 degrees. Jeez. I didn't think that was possible. Like, the air hurt my face. It burned.
I know we were sitting here with all the rain and everything was going on, and we're seeing you guys out in the snow and doing certain things, and over the last 10 or 15 days, I don't know if you can still tell it, but my voice is in and out. Probably 80% of our staff after Christmas services were sick with either COVID or a sinus infection or something. And so it's been a whirlwind for us. And it's really a good thing we didn't have services, because I'm not sure how we'd have pulled that off. And we still have staff going, hope I can be there next Sunday. I've got, some stuff going on. Right. And so trying to protect people and get well at the same time. So it's been quite an experience kind of transitioning to the new year. So what about them dogs, though?
Man, I am excited, and I'm also ready to get hurt again.
I don't know about you guys, but at the time of this filming, it is on a Wednesday, and we're about 5 days away from the national championship. I still have high hopes, but I also know what shattered dreams feel like.
I've learned if I don't expect a whole lot, I'm very rarely disappointed. So I'm excited. I'm just glad to be in the game. The Braves are world champions right now, and I couldn't ask for much more.
Yeah. Speaking of 2021, we finally won a championship in Atlanta. That was good.
Finally. And then they canceled baseball. So
yeah. So there's a lot of things that have happened, and I know people are just now tuning in. And so let's take a few minutes and look back on, I think as a church, so many people come in and sit down on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night, or they're involved in various areas of ministry here at Relevant. And we talk a lot about life change, and we preach the gospel, and we have that time together, but we don't talk a little bit about the business aspect of what's going on, the health of the church. We talk about it from a spiritual perspective, but there's a lot of things that happen behind closed doors that a lot of people don't know about. And I remember growing up in a church where we had business meetings and people voted, and we don't do all that. We have a team of elders that are non-paid. We have some staff that are on that board, but majority of them are unpaid elders that help navigate the business side of the church and even talking about the spiritual conversations of the church. But I do think it's important, as people are generous, as you give and you serve, that you know what's happening at your church and what to look forward to. And so we won't go into all the minutia of everything, but we posted a video with some of the life change stats and opportunities that we made a difference at the year end. But I thought we could just walk through some of our highlights of 2021. I think we can start with this. Tell us a little bit, just what has been some of your favorite parts of 2021 from what happens on Sundays in the community or whatever. Tell us a little bit about that, and then I'll share a couple thoughts.
Yeah, I actually saw a post that went out this past weekend and said, what was your favorite series of 2021? And it really got me thinking. And it's been a long year. Some of those series, I was like, wow, that was this year. But at the movies this past summer was just so much fun as a church, and we had the movie on the lawn, and it's a lot of fun, family-friendly activity, community happening. I loved that. In our student ministry, we had a lot of cool things happen this past year. We had over 50 students say yes to Jesus for the first time. So much fun to celebrate that and to see the life change happening there. We had over 60 students take steps to start serving in some capacity, whether on Wednesday nights or on Sunday in our kids' environments. And we had over 30 students be baptized. Wow. And almost 600 students walked through our doors last year. Wow. So it was an incredible year in our student ministry, and just to watch that grow, it's been fun to step back into student ministry and see this generation who is so hungry to make a difference and to make an impact in this community.
I remember you saying something probably, 3 or 4 weeks ago. We were sitting down talking with the group, and you said you never felt so either unqualified or so distant from student ministry because things have changed so incredibly fast. And what we know about the last 18 to 24 months is any dysfunction, anything that was happening on social media, anything that was happening in technology was expedited because kids were locked in rooms with cell phones and everything else and technology. And so to hear the life change that happened in our student ministry and what I would consider a transitional year of learning and growing and trying to figure out how things are happening, but yet trying to execute things with excellence. Because one of the things people don't, maybe that are new to Relevant Church, don't understand is prior to opening this auditorium that we're sitting in now, we were over in a small 400-seat auditorium in a building that on a Sunday morning, max capacity was 600. And there were Sundays we had 750 people in it in one service. And so we were thriving. We were learning a lot. We had incredible momentum in student ministry. And then we move into this building, and this building can swallow you whole in a lot of ways. This building, all of a sudden, you're trying to figure out how to do student ministry in an auditorium that seats 9 to 1,100, depending on how you set it up. And you're trying to figure out how to get kids back. You're trying to figure out how to engage them, and now technology, all the things that are going on. It's been a whirlwind. And so to hear that life change, I want our church to hear that that's a pretty remarkable thing. And so if you're looking for somewhere to get involved in 2022, that's an incredible place to get involved. Is in student ministry, kids ministry. We say at Relevant Church, we want to create a place where we have a generation that never knows a day without knowing Jesus. Now, that is not, we don't raise kids, but we partner with parents to help them raise their children. And so get your student here on a Wednesday. I know my oldest, he's 14, he serves, he's here every Tuesday throughout the day, he's homeschooled, then he's here on Wednesdays setting up. But I tell Daniel and these guys all the time is I want 3 or 4 other men other than myself at various stages, some younger, some older, some married, some single, some whatever, in their life that can speak into my child's life and help him be a well-rounded, not individual, but follower of Jesus. And I think that's happening through our student ministries. And so I have a student, I'm very critical of ministry when my kid's involved. And so, but I'm watching him thrive, and I know the opportunities are there. And I'm watching a kid who is very, you know this about Jace, he's pretty critical too. He's got a critical thinking mind. He's not afraid to speak his opinions.
Did you get that from you?
His mom. And so he's not afraid to speak his opinion, but he also sees the opportunity in front of him. And I want to just say this to parents who have students, get your kids involved. And if they're pushing back or they're not connecting or they're having a hard time, it's probably something going on in their realm, their culture, their world. It's not the opportunities that are available here. Yeah. And I think the opportunities are here, but there's a lot going on. So let us partner with you to get your students involved, to get your 4th and 5th graders involved in our preteens. Your kids even, man, there's just so much. I say this all the time. Our kids have experienced 18 months of trauma. 18 months of trauma because of all that's going on with COVID, on top of not just being separated from school, but there's multiple layers of that trauma. So get them here. Let us help you connect with them along the way. I think, go ahead. You say it?
I was just curious what your favorite part of the year was. You asked me, and I spent a lot of time talking.
This is one that just a moment of transparency here. I've had maybe 3 seasons of my life, 21 years of ministry that I can think of. This was one of the top 3 seasons that were probably the toughest. And one of those seasons was probably November, December, January, February, that time frame, rolling over from 2020 to 2021. We know this statistically, 38% of pastors have thought of quitting in the last year. I am not one of those. That's never crossed my mind. But I can tell you, I thought about punching some things. I thought about hurting some things. I felt at times like I was in rooms and sitting in situations where people were absolutely losing their mind. And yet at the same time, I'm trying to navigate conversations and leadership and business. And people are uptight and things are chaotic. And literally, we did a series called Out of My Control. And I think that's that 4-month window. I literally felt like it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what I went through, how hard I tried. Nothing was good enough. And I think I posted an article for our staff today, and it actually said, I circled this quote. And now that I wouldn't even plan on sharing this, but I circled this quote from a pastor who wrote this. And he said, a spiritual mentor of his, I had to tell him one time, and he said something he told him to quote to himself over and over and over. And that was this: nothing I do will be good enough as a pastor. Everything I do can be picked apart, and that's okay.
Wow.
And I feel like if I ever was in a season where that was true, that was that 4-month window. Just so many opinions, but on top of the business side of building a building and all the financial side, things weren't nearly as bad as maybe the pressure that I felt, but nonetheless, it was kind of that point of just the rope and the tension was pulled so tight. So that in and of itself was very painful. Fast forward though, I really have enjoyed the last few months. We've seen a lot of people take, and here's the crazy part about that season of life where I was struggling. We were launching the good life and seeing people's life go through stuff. And I'm sitting here kind of wrestling, even as a leader, like, man, this is painful. I'm trying to help people deal with their past hurts and pains and preaching messages during that season as well. So that was very unique. And so I think fast forward now, I've really enjoyed the last few months because what we're seeing, I think, while yet again, people are still in what I call FOMO and YOLO, they're just trying to figure out what's next. We had the biggest migration in American history of people moving from church to church.
Really?
All across America, people, and so they jump over here because they think that's going to meet their need, or they jump over here because they need something else. And what was really going on in the last 18 months is there was a void they never filled in their current situation, and so they moved to another situation.
That's good.
And so we've had people leave our church, go to other churches. We've had people come from other churches to our church. And every pastor that we coach and talk to in town has the same situation. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, my people go over there and their people come over here. And I'm like, good Lord, people put down roots somewhere and do hard things. And so I feel like our church is starting to come together and kind of settle in a rhythm of, okay, we're ready to dig our feet in and do hard things. For example, we launched the counseling center last year. 120 people a month are going through counseling. And one of the things we're getting ready to launch this January, it starts this Saturday, is we've got a counselor training. We got 27 lay counselors going through lay counsel training over 3 weeks to be prepared to help people and take their next steps. Yeah. So we're finally at a place, I feel like, where I don't want to say, we're never going to go back to normal. We're never going to have this new, it's kind of a new way of doing and thinking, not necessarily doing. The church is meant to be together. That's a biblical, I think, I have a biblical conviction from Acts 2 and Acts 4 on that. But at the end of the day, it's a new way of thinking about church probably than just gathering. And people are starting to see, I think, differently. And so having all these people take their next steps, we started to see that probably over the last 3 or 4 months in ways that I'm like, okay, finally, what we've been preaching, what we've been working towards, what we've been, moving towards, people are just doing. Yeah. And so I'm proud of you for taking your next steps. We got the Good Life starting here in a few weeks. Yeah. So I'm excited about that again.
I'm excited about the lay counseling training, counselor training. My wife and I are going through that, and I think we have a couple youth volunteers going through that. And I think that's going to add an extra layer of intentionality on Wednesday nights to have them on campus when our students are here. We're challenging our students to do hard things, and then when they're doing hard things, they need someone to talk to. And to have lay counselors here on campus for that, I think it's going to be a game changer. Yeah,
and so from a practical standpoint, people said, how do I become a lay counselor? Well, here's the first thing. First of all, be a partner of Relevant Church, and then fulfill your original partnership thing. So if you're not attending regularly, you're not already serving, you're not being generous, and you're not growing spiritually, then you're not qualified. Right. It's real simple. And so we went to people who we've seen taking major steps of wholeness and healing. They've been through the good life. They've been to counseling. They've done the things to deal with the trauma in their life. They're giving, they're serving, they're attending. They're in the very life of the church. And about 27 people are going through that counselor training. And look, it's probably going to be one of those like beat your head against the walls like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed with thinking. But they're dedicated to this thing for 3 weekends over the next month. And I'm excited about that because I think that's going to yield tons of results.
Yeah, I agree.
And so you talked about life change for student ministry. For us, it's been fun to watch baptisms, I think, are kind of that first demonstration of life change. And we've baptized tons of people this year. But every time we've baptized people from students, from kids, and from Celebrate Recovery, which has been incredible. And I've watched, I think one of my favorite moments of life change was watching a 18 or 19-year-old student who's involved in student leadership with you now. Mm-hmm. She came up through our student ministry. I remember when she got baptized, she got to baptize 2 of her students in her small group a few weeks back. And man, that's the whole never know a day without knowing Jesus conversation.
Her small group is exploding, by the way. I think she started in August with like 8 6th grade girls. And I think the last time we had small group, they had like 28.
That's wild.
Their friends love it, and they're bringing their students. And that, again, that just shows that Wednesday nights, our students love being here, and they want their friends to experience that.
That's wild.
So,
that's wild. So kind of before we turn the page to 2022, I want to say this related to 2021. We had, going into 2021, when COVID hit, we made a lot of decisions on a business side of things to say, okay, we're building a $5.8 million new auditorium. We've grown from 1,700 in the previous 9 weeks leading up to when COVID shut down, from January to March, or second or third week in March, I can't remember when it was. We had grown by 600 to 700 people on average attendance. during 2 services, our middle services on Sunday morning, we had 8, 10, 11:30, and 1 o'clock. The 10 and 11:30, we couldn't put anybody else on this property. We had people literally would come in and be like, I'll come back to the next service, or not come at all. The 8:30 was growing. The 1 o'clock, we had never been able to get more than 100, 120 people on 1 o'clock, was 300 people. So we had this momentum that was out of control. And listen, from a business standpoint, the reality is you got to keep the lights on, you got to pay the bills, you got to do certain things in order to do ministry. And so things were we were building this new building. We had kind of stepped out in faith and challenged our people to give, and people had stepped up. But then all of a sudden we're going, man, we're going to move into this new facility with 3,000 people because we're 2,300 people. And statistically, everything in our church has always been up and to the right. It's kind of the beyond the hockey stick principle, where everything's here, 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 and then when it goes, it kind of goes. And it's a book, a leadership book. And I think the reality is we felt that. And all the anticipation was, this is going to be the year that we see opportunity. We had campuses in our minds.
Plans. It was the year, all right.
Yeah, and so then we shut down in March. And so now I have to go into 2 modes that I prefer to stay out of business mode, honestly, because I love business, but if I wanted to do business, I'd go have my own. I have businesses on the side. I go spend a lot more time making a lot of money over it. I don't like the business side of things. I like the ministry side of things. I like the leadership conversation. But I also had to step into a role of pastor. And for those of you who know me, that is not my number one gift set. I can pastor, but I'm more of an evangelist and a prophetic voice, I think, sometimes speaking truth to chaos. And so leadership and just being candid and authentic and real, if you look at the gifts of that God blessed the church with in Ephesians, I look at this, you got apostle, prophets, pastors, priests. And so I look at this whole thing and evangelism. I think it's my whole thing about I really fit more into the realm of a kind of a prophetic voice, I think, speaking into the culture, not pastor in the sense of hey, let me come sit by your side. And that's a challenge because people want that. And so I saw the very need for me to put on that hat during the COVID season with our staff and all of those things. And so for that whole time, I stepped back into a day-to-day operations role, pastoring, really tried to help us pastor. And we didn't do everything right. We probably dropped the ball of pastoring our people in a lot of ways. But I went through that whole season of that year when I thought I was going to be a leader and speak, now I'm just in the day-to-day pastoring of people, which is necessary, but it's not my number one gift set, so to speak. So we go through that whole thing, and then we open this building thinking 3,000. We keep pushing back. COVID lingers. We open with 900 people.
I remember when we first announced that we were closing, I thought, wow, it's 3 weeks initially. I'm like, wow. 3-week vacation. Yeah. And by week 24, I'm like, all right, can we just please meet?
Yeah, and so we come back. It's like in September, we came back with 900 people.
That's a huge drop.
Well, and I had to pastor.
Yeah.
If you look back, my messages were very pastoral. I've just kind of moved back into the prophetic voice of let's go. We got to change the world. The evangelistic conversation, a lot of the things, if you just look at the communication style, you can see a shift. And so that was a little unique for me as a leader growing into that. And so now we move in with 900 people and the game's changed. The game has changed because people are hurting. They're dealing with more trauma, layers of trauma from childhood, divorce, loss, pain, grief. And we began to hear, something we'll talk about here in a minute. Man, life sucks. We heard it over and over and over. And so all of those things happen. And I began to move. Now we're opening a building with half the people, but with double the budget on a facility side of things. And so I began to say, okay, we made a lot of decisions with our elder team and our financial team to say we're going to cut certain things, we're going to move certain things, we're going to make sure we're healthy. We had reserves. We had worked really hard at a strong reserves, but nonetheless, you don't know what's happening.
Right.
So then we fast forward to 2021, and we come to this building, we set budget for 2021, and late 2020, we go, okay, we peeled it way back, tried to get to the zero balance budget, and I was so amazed coming into 2021. We had to tap reserves for a few things during that season, and one of the goals at the end of this year was to get strong and make sure we had all that we needed for 2022. And I just want to say, a long story short, our church stepped up, man. We helped with tens of thousands, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 toward other churches. Wow. But in this season, we also saw our church give toward something that's not even tangible. And that is, we want to be healthy for the future. We want to give to reserves. We are making a difference in other churches, but we're giving because we believe there's a mission at hand in 2022, 2023, 2024. So we're giving to make sure our church is healthy. And we just had over the last 6 weeks blew away any 6-week period of generosity in the history of our church.
Really?
Yeah. So we are so grateful for the people who call Relevant Church their home in the middle of all these seasons. And the cool part is, we do something called Link Collectives and pastoring other churches and other pastors. I've had texts this week and last week of pastors who did the year-end offerings we challenged them to do, and their churches stepped up.
Wow,
and
that's
we're
cool.
incredibly generous. So that makes you feel like, okay, we're getting ready for something cool.
Yeah.
And I just want to say a huge thank you to our church and the people who call the church their home. You were so incredibly generous to get us ready for 2022. So that's a little bit of the highlights, I guess, from 2021 that are behind the scenes and so to speak. But let's shift for a minute and talk about 2022. You've got some stuff coming, specifically coming in the summer you're excited about, because it feels like we've been on pause for a while. Tell us about that.
As we are going back to camp. Our students are going back to camp. We're going to Panama City Beach this June, and it's going to be a blast. I cannot wait.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about camp in the last few months, and some of the problems that camp poses to leadership. And we don't allow one adult to be in rooms with kids alone. We always put 2 adults in rooms. And when you go to hotel rooms where there's 4 people in a room, you have to put 2 adults, you have to put kids in a room by themselves. And we're just not in a place where we're comfortable with that, with all the given situations. And so we actually chose a different camp this year. We'll talk more about it in the weeks to come, but specifically to protect your kids, to put them in more bunkhouse style environments for the sake of, hey, we want to protect them emotionally, spiritually, physically. We want them to be and we don't want to put them in situations where they're exposed to things. And so we're working hard to protect our kids in that regard. I know you're excited about that.
Yeah, we are pumped.
So again, student ministry is involved. I think another thing that I was just talking to one of our staff about this week that we're getting ready to go back to, and there's some informational meetings, I think, January and February, is Honduras. One of the things we had to shut down on, and it was a natural conversation to shut down on all of our things going to Honduras, because number one, you couldn't get supplies in, you couldn't get supplies out, you couldn't even get in and get out. And so now we normally, on any given year that we go to Honduras, we'll put $70,000 to $100,000 into our partners in Honduras, which, if you're new to Relevant Church, that's an orphanage there and local churches that have nothing. And we provide vitamins to help them deal with parasites over the course of a year and help them to stay healthy. So I'm excited about Honduras. I think that's coming up, I don't know, sometime in the fall, October-ish. I'm not sure the dates on that.
That'll be a great time for sure. What are some opportunities for growth you think we'll see this year?
Okay, so we always say your next step is your best step. That's one of my favorite values at Relevant Church, because it is it's day to day. Like, we can talk about transformational environments on a Sunday and creating those transformational environments, but that's like week in to week out. But day to day, there's a next step for everybody. And if we'll go into that day with the idea that, hey, I have some real opportunities to take next steps, then I think we can all grow. I look at this every day, like, how can I take a step in this area today, spiritually, leadership-wise, emotionally? Not every day's a spiritual step either. Not every day's, but there's a well-roundedness for our lives. And so for me, I think the lay counseling thing is huge. We are going to have, by the time we're done with this, assuming all the lay counselors make it through and finish out, we're going to have 25 plus people that can sit down with you one-on-one and help navigate you without having to go sit down with a counselor and say, okay, what are your next steps? So at any given week, we could have 25 to 50 people meeting with someone saying, hey, will you take an hour and help me process this and help me figure out my next steps?
Wow, that's
huge. Incredible, because this from a student perspective. Kids will give their heart and life to Christ, and they'll start sharing stuff, and people are like, whoa, we're not prepared for this.
Yeah.
So
I hear that. I mean, I've heard that several times this year. Volunteers like, hey, how do I navigate this conversation?
And that's in our kids ministry as well.
Yeah.
That's in our 3rd grade ministry. I mean, this thing's happening across our campus and our young adult. So having this is going to help. It's not only the steps for the lay counselors, it's also an open door, kind of the beginning of the funnel. So people don't go, oh, I got to sign up for counseling and wait 3 weeks. I can go sit down with somebody, have a conversation, and figure out what's next. And these people are trained to help me navigate this season. So that's a huge opportunity. I think just the next steps in general, the good life is coming. We're seeing, a couple weeks back, I preached a message on manipulation. And that Sunday we saw 25 new people sign up for the Good Life.
Wow.
So that was encouraging. The Good Life starts in a few weeks. I'm actually going to be a part of the Good Life this time. All the teachings, most of the teachings will still be video driven, but I'll be hosting a couple times. I think it's important. We're learning that, and this is what our team is telling me, and so I'm coming out, that people still want to have a touch point with Julie and I in the Good Life, because that's the team. And they're like, man, this is somebody who's spoken to my life and somebody who's helped me deal with trauma, helped me take next steps. But then I come into this 9 week and I don't see them.
Yeah, I think it's important.
And so I'm excited to kind of touch, give high fives to people and have that heart-to-heart touch point with people.
Yeah. So those that are watching right now, is it too late for them to sign up for the Good Life?
Nope. I think we have till the 23rd or somewhere in there. Don't quote me. Go to myrelevant.cc and do that. And then, anything is on myrelevant.cc. And if you're new to Relevant and
That's
you're
a
saying,
good website to go ahead and bookmark. If you
you
haven't
can
already.
actually save it on your home screen. Go there. It'll give you very, very specific instructions on how to tap a button and save it to your home screen. Then it works like an app and everything is right there. And I would encourage people who are new to Relevant Church that may be tuning in to go to something we're shifting some of our language for 2022. And so what we used to call First Step, Next Step, Heart and Soul, we're really just combining some things and we're calling something called Welcome to Relevant. And it's a 2-week experience where you can connect with others, learn a little bit how you can connect at Relevant Church and take your next best step because people want to know how to do that, but they can also make friends in the process.
Sure.
So that's coming up. That's on myrelevant.cc. And then out of that 2-week experience, you'll be able to determine, okay, what do I do in week 3? What do I do next? So I'm excited about the changes that are happening there. And then if I'm honest, there's some painful changes coming. There's some things called, I used to say this to our team a long time ago, and people heard me say it, and it became kind of people could repeat it. But now, it's been, a couple years since I've said this and taught it from a leadership perspective, but write this down. Growth brings change. Change brings loss. Loss brings pain, and pain brings grief. Now, let me apply that to how you walk in on a Sunday morning. Growth means there are people coming in 2022 that weren't here in 2021. We're seeing trends, we're seeing growth, we're seeing new people. Growth brings change. That means when you pull in the parking lot, you might not be able to park in the same parking spot. And if that's a deal breaker, this ain't the church for you.
That's right.
Mark it down. There are other churches and there are other parking places. Because at the end of the day, we are here to create transformational environments so people can come in and experience life change. And so with this massive campus, 3 parking lots, 3 entrances, kids wing, main auditorium, we have to move people in a certain way to move the traffic in and out between services and everything else. The other thing is people are coming in. We're having to go back to something we did a few years ago. And people thought we were crazy when we did it in the old auditorium. We started roping off seats. And like, well, there's seats up here. And they would always just pull down. I don't know who you are. Thank God. Pull down the ropes and then go sit where they want to sit. And then people would come in for the first time who've gone through a divorce, who are thinking about separating, who are considering suicide, or who've been abandoned or abused, and they can't find a seat because I had to sit in my same seat. Growth brings change. Change brings loss of your seat or your parking place or your comfort zone because, listen to me, we're not called to be comfortable. The disciples gave their life.
That's right.
Paul writes from a prison cell, to live as Christ, to die as gain. I just think we got to remember that.
Yeah. I tell my students that all the time. You're not called to be comfortable. You're called to be faithful.
Right. And so faithful is faithful to the mission of Christ,
Yes.
the good news of Christ, which means making room for other people.
Yep.
And so changes are coming, and that growth brings change brings loss brings pain. It's going to be uncomfortable. And pain brings grief. And now all of a sudden you're like, well, things aren't the way they used to be. You're right, because more people are coming to know Jesus. And now's the time. Maybe God is calling us, me, you, our staff, our leadership, are calling us to step out of our comfort zone to say, hey, God has opened the doors for us to make change in people's lives. Now let's do the hard things. Some of these things aren't hard. We're just stubborn. So yeah, there's some uncomfortable changes. And then when we do see the growth, if it comes as we hope it does in 2022, and we start talking about, hey, let's add a 3rd service. Watch people go,
I think I did that on the inside.
right. And so they'll freak out. Well, how many are we going to do? Look, we've been here before.
Yeah.
It's exciting times. And if you're not ready for the ride, it's crazy. It's wild, but it's the ride of your life, man, to see people come to know Christ and people just flock. I'm so excited about those things. And so some of your next steps is don't be stubborn.
So what was that again? Change brings, say that one more time.
Growth in anything brings change. Change brings loss, because when I have to change things, I'll lose things that I'm accustomed to. Loss brings pain. Oh gosh, this is very uncomfortable. I got to grieve the loss now.
Yeah.
And so for example, here's what I say. When my kid went from diapers to walking, and I missed that little being able to hold. They don't want to be held anymore. They just want to run around. Mm-hmm. Then when they became, kids running around everywhere, like that was the change of that little cuteness. Now they're brats, you know what I mean, or whatever. Then they go into preteen and adolescence. And then now think about when they're 18 or 21 and they move out. Think about the change that happens in a home. Right. Growth brings change. My kid grew up, it brought change for me. And then people are getting divorced when they're empty nesters because they don't understand. Growth brings change brings loss brings pain brings grief. I got to deal with the grief. I don't know how to deal with the grief, let's divorce.
I need to write that down because I was trying to explain that to someone a few weeks ago and I got the order all mixed up.
Yeah, so it's painful.
It wasn't very helpful.
But can I be honest with you? It's not any more painful for anybody than it is for our staff. Because You know this. We'll walk into a meeting on a Tuesday and go, things are changing in 2 weeks. And everybody's like, oh, crap.
I can attest. That has happened.
Yeah.
We have launched complete services
In
with
2
like
weeks.
2 weeks notice.
Yep. And so listen, it's crazy, but it can be the ride of your life. When you come in and you don't get to park in a parking place and you see a single mom carrying 3 kids that did get to park in that parking place, or you come and you sit and once this place does fill up and you go, man, I'm so glad we had those seats reserved for the people who didn't know Christ, who sat in those seats and gave their heart and life to Christ. It changes you on the inside. It changes you on the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want you to take just a few minutes and tell us a little bit about the next 2 series we're going through. I have a feeling they're going to be a good time.
So I'll probably say this again Sunday, and I'm probably going to offend people, but that's okay, because nothing I can do is ever good enough. Humor, and everything I do can be scrutinized.
Part, yeah.
So I think I get it. What to do when life sucks is not a normal series that you would hear in a church. I get it.
I got in trouble in 3rd grade for saying that.
Well, and we've had somebody post on our social media, I say life stinks. Well, good for you. And so I think at the end of the day, that's not what I hear. I don't walk around here people saying, life stinks. I hear people saying almost at least weekly, sometimes daily, depending on what circles I'm in. Man, life sucks right now.
Well, see, life stinks is sugar-coated. And I heard someone specifically say to me in a small group setting, like, I really appreciated, you said life sucks once on stage, and they said, I really appreciated when the pastor said life sucks, because I know this church is real, it's authentic, and it's not sugar-coated.
Yeah, and I think the premise behind life sucks is the reality is life doesn't suck. The circumstances in life make it feel like it sucks. Because there's a great, like I said, it does suck, the circumstance, but there's a hope. And that's what we're really going to talk about. This is a way to get people who are hurting to give us a chance to speak hope into their life. Yeah. And I never forget, somebody said, just people pray this. And listen, if you posted a weird or dumb comment on the social media ad, we hit it. You're the only person that can see it, and we can see it. Everybody else can't see it, so they don't know who we're talking to. So because we want to protect you, because I don't want to say anything to offend you. But when praying, if it was just easy as praying to make life quit sucking, everybody would live in the candy factory. Yeah. And so you can pray your guts out and still got to go face the thing in front of you. Yep. So there's some legitimate things that need to happen on our part. And so praying or, spending, just dude, it's not that simple. And I wish the church in America would quit over spirit, just being over. People are like, I tried praying, I'm still hurting. I tried praying, he still died. I tried praying, my kid's still going through this. I tried praying and he walked out on me. I tried praying and he's still abusing me. So I mean, come on, let's be honest. These are real talks. And here's what I'm excited about in 2022 is that we're going to get to the dark places of people's heart who wouldn't give church a chance. I am not concerned about religious people. I am not. And so the idea that, we think the word sucks is not Christian. Well, half the people in our audience say it. And half of y'all that say that listen to it on the radio and watch it on shows. So if you don't like it, get it out of everything in your life and quit faking it. And so for me, man, we're just going hardcore and raw. And people are going to be real offended this week when I preach a message called Pit Happens. So that'll be fun.
Pit happens.
And so we're going to dig in the life of Joseph for a few weeks, and we're going to make a shift, and I'm excited about that. And then we got yard signs over now. Yes, we're getting hate mail. I tell people, don't show me that hate mail. I'm not responding to it. Then we're doing it again. We're going back in February to do a series. It'll be a little bit different approach to a series we did several years ago. And you want to talk about the hate mail we got on that, send it to I don't care at myrelevant.cc. I'm not responding. I'm not even going to see it. So if you take a shot at me, I'm not seeing it. But we're literally doing a series called Let's Talk About Sex. And I don't know what the big deal about that is, because what happens is Julie and I are going to do a marriage conference in February out in Arkansas. And we're literally, this is kind of one of the premises behind a lot of conversations about sex and intimacy, is what God designed, the enemy has hijacked. And if we put the word sex on a yard sign, people lose their mind and say, well, you shouldn't put that. I'm like, well, your kid probably has TikTok. That's a problem. True. So don't come at me unless you don't, because the boundaries in my home are pretty strict. And if anybody saw our house, they would understand, the boundaries. Yep. My kids don't have cell phones, they don't have access to that stuff, any of that stuff. And so I'm not saying they can't still find that stuff, but we don't put it in their hands. I don't give them the world at their fingertips. And so when we put yard signs out, or we send out a mailer that says, let's talk about sex, people lose their mind. And, well, you shouldn't talk. Well, everybody else is talking about it. And you know this from a student perspective. Our generation don't even know they don't even know what gender they are.
Oh my God. It is so confused. Everybody's so confused right now. It is so twisted and it's been perverted. And it is so sad to see these students are just looking for direction, and they're getting the direction from TikTok.
TikTok.
And that should terrify you.
Yeah, and so I think I'm excited about that because we're not just going to talk about husband and wife and sex. We're going to talk about the whole sexuality conversation. And so I will just say this very candidly. There's a difference in sex, male and female, and what God created and what the culture has termed as gender. You can talk about gender all day. God still created sex.
Yep.
The sex, male and female. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the series. And we're going to get pushback and we're going to get hate mail. And we're not basing our truth on anything but God's word. And so at the end of the day, I'm excited, but I also know there's a target on our back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know, man. I think 2022 could be the greatest year we've had in a long time. And so I'm excited for you. Here's what I want you to do. If you have questions or thoughts or conversations, post them in the link below. We'll do our best to kind of follow up, give you some bullet points. Some of you want to connect. Maybe you got someone who's struggling. You've heard that same thing. Life sucks. Life sucks. Get them to church. Maybe they're not okay. They're going through a difficult season. They're not in church. This is a great opportunity. People are starting new habits in 2022. So get them here this weekend. The other thing is maybe I don't want to make light of this gender conversation and sex conversation because there's a lot of people watching who say, that's me.
Yeah.
And so if that's you, man, email us. You're struggling, you're battling, we love you. We believe in you. We want to help you take next steps. We want to speak truth into your pain, but also be gracious enough to walk alongside of you.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
Anything else you're excited about for students?
We're starting a brand new series next week. Youth XP kicks off next Wednesday night. Pumped to be back. We're starting a series called When in Rome. Came from a sentence you said in one of your messages probably 3 months ago. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Blend in. Well, we're not called to blend in. We're called to be set apart and to stand out. And so we're going to dig into that this month. And then next month, we're looking at a series called Cupid Shuffle, where we're going to talk about relationships and dating and how their commitment and what that looks like.
That's cool. Well, I'm excited about all that. The last thing I would say, kind of before we shut everything down, is this Sunday, we're going to be launching a fast. A fasting is where you abstain from food, not TikTok. You abstain from food for an expanded season of time. And so there's various ways that people fast. Some people will say, I'm going to take 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, all 21 days and do only liquids. Other people would say, I'm going to do fruits and vegetables only for 21 days. Some people will take 3 days and do a fast and then eat for 3 days and then there's different various ways. We'll have some ways here on Sunday. People will sign up for the fast. We wanted to tell you so you could go ahead and get connected to that and go ahead and plan ahead. I know my family will be doing some component of fruits and vegetables. I'll be doing a little bit more of a liquid fast throughout the season. But we take that time to abstain from food, a necessity for our body. Some people have health reasons they can't do it that way, but to pray and to seek God. And so we'll be spending extra time in prayer during those seasons. Yep. And then on the 28th, we're going to come back. The 28th is a Friday night. We're doing something different this year, not the 30th. Normally, we would do a night of worship on that Sunday night. We're going to do something a little different, a different style, a different feel to night of worship, a little more intimate, a little more just kind of relational and communal in here on Friday night, the 28th, at 7 p.m., a night of worship. So that's going to be fun. Cool. I'm excited about that. Looking forward to that. So make sure you sign up this weekend. Be here, get here early. Remember, we have seats blocked off for people who may not be here. Or maybe you say, well, they're available this week. We're getting ready for when God sends the masses and all that stuff. So we love you. We believe in you. We believe the best is yet to come. Like and share all the videos about in the social media post about what to do when life sucks. Hand out the cards. We have some more for you if you want them. Put your yard signs out. And we'll see you Sunday, January 9th at 9:30 or 11:15. God bless you, church. We love you. The best is yet to come. We'll see you this weekend.